Have you ever watched a master clockmaker take apart a complex timepiece? Hundreds of tiny interlocking gears, where moving just 1 millimeter to the left changes the entire mechanism. That is exactly what we are looking at this week across the Middle East. We are watching gears shift in real time, from the drone facilities on the Iranian coast to the borders of southern Lebanon. And the stakes are nothing less than global stability.
It is a brilliant analogy, but I would add that in this particular clock, half the gears are rigged with explosives, and the clockmaker is wearing a blindfold. We are seeing a region pushed to the absolute brink. You have targeted military strikes, economic strangulation, stalled diplomatic talks, and shifting political rhetoric from Washington, all colliding at once. It is not just a localized crisis anymore. It is a global economic and humanitarian pressure cooker.
Before we unpack this massive geopolitical puzzle, from the Strait of Hormuz to the hills of Lebanon, let us take a quick moment to highlight something exciting. For those of you who crave this exact kind of deep dive, you need to check out the new Sentinel. It is a podcast dedicated to providing in-depth discussions on an incredibly wide array of topics, from the glitz and glamour of pop culture to the strategic, high-stakes intricacies of military operations. They truly cover it all.
Absolutely. Each episode of The New Sentinel is thoughtfully crafted to offer listeners a comprehensive understanding of the subject matter. They feature expert interviews, incredibly detailed analysis, and engaging storytelling. Whether you are a pop culture enthusiast looking for the latest breakdown, or someone with a keen interest in global security and intelligence, The New Sentinel genuinely has something for everyone. Tune in, share, comment, and view to stay informed and entertained. And if you want to advertise with them, you can email them directly at claebede@yahoo.com.
Highly recommended. Now, let us get back to the board. We need to start with the direct friction between the United States and Iran. We have seen recent U.S. strikes targeting Iranian sites, specifically radar and drone facilities on Keshm. For those who might not have a map in front of them, why is Keshm so critical? And what message do these specific strikes send?
Keshem is the largest island in the Persian Gulf, sitting right at the strategic mouth of the Strait of Hormuz. Targeting radar and drone facilities there is not just a tactical military maneuver, it is a blinding operation. Drones have become the asymmetric weapon of choice for Tehran, used not just for surveillance, but for offensive capabilities across the region. By hitting those specific nodes, the US is effectively trying to poke out the eyes of the adversary while simultaneously crippling their reach. But the response is what makes this so volatile. Retaliations are rarely symmetrical. They are designed to be unpredictable.
And that unpredictability bleeds right into the economic sphere. We are seeing diplomatic talks over Iran's frozen assets completely stalling out. It feels like the financial leverage that was supposed to bring everyone to the negotiating table has instead become a dead weight. How does this financial freeze impact the physical reality on the ground, especially concerning the Strait of Hormuz and global oil supplies?
Money is the oxygen of any state apparatus. When those billions in frozen assets remain locked away, the domestic pressure inside Iran intensifies dramatically. The economy suffocates. And when a nation feels backed into an economic corner, the temptation to use its ultimate trump card grows. That card is the Strait of Hormuz. Roughly 20% of the world's liquid petroleum consumption passes through that narrow choke point. If tensions escalate to the point where shipping is genuinely threatened or halted, we are not just talking about regional fallout. We are talking about crude oil prices skyrocketing overnight, inflation spiking globally, and a ripple effect that hits everyday people at the gas pump in Tokyo, London, and Los Angeles.
It is the ultimate hostage situation, where the hostage is the global economy. And complicating this delicate balance is the rhetoric coming out of the United States. We have to look at the shifting statements from Donald Trump regarding this entire crisis. The messaging seems to oscillate between isolationist restraint and aggressive ultimatums. How does this kind of rhetorical whiplash affect the possibility of any imminent deal?
It introduces a massive variable of uncertainty. In diplomacy, predictability is often the currency of trust. When statements shift wildly from day to day, adversaries and allies alike struggle to calculate the actual red lines. This theory of geopolitics, where you keep your opponent guessing about your true intentions, can sometimes force concessions, but in a powder keg like the current Middle East, it can also lead to catastrophic miscalculations. If the other side genuinely does not know whether a deal is imminent or if a massive strike is coming, they might choose to strike first out of sheer paranoia. Right now, looking at the stalled asset talks and the kinetic exchanges, an overarching diplomatic deal seems incredibly remote. The trust deficit is simply too deep.
Let us pivot geographically, though not thematically, because it is all connected. Looking at the Israel-Hezbollah conflict in Lebanon, the situation seems to be spiraling despite immense international pressure. We are seeing ongoing strikes, Israeli operations pushing deep into southern Lebanon, and a rapidly mounting civilian toll. What is the strategic objective here? And why have all the US-backed ceasefire pushes failed so spectacularly?
The failure of the ceasefires comes down to fundamentally incompatible survival strategies. For Israel, the objective in southern Lebanon is to push Hezbollah forces north of the Litani River, degrading their missile capabilities to ensure that evacuated citizens in northern Israel can safely return home. It is viewed as an existential security imperative. For Hezbollah, their legitimacy and regional standing are entirely tied to their resistance narrative and their solidarity with Gaza. To agree to a ceasefire while operations in Gaza continue would be seen as a capitulation. So you have diplomatic pushes from Washington hitting a brick wall because neither side feels they can afford the political or strategic cost of stopping.
The human cost of this deadlock is staggering. We are seeing rising casualties and entire communities displaced, their lives uprooted in an instant. But beyond the immediate tragedy, there is the broader regional fallout. How are the neighboring states and the international community reacting to this deepening quagmire in Lebanon?
There is a profound sense of diplomatic paralysis. Neighbouring Arab states are deeply anxious. They are watching the erosion of state infrastructure in Lebanon, a country already crippled by economic collapse, and they fear a total power vacuum. A destabilised Lebanon is a breeding ground for further extremism and a massive refugee crisis that could spill over borders. Internationally, you see a fracture. European nations are increasingly vocal about the humanitarian toll, while the US finds itself in a paradoxical position, arming and supporting its primary ally, Israel, while simultaneously trying to act as the neutral broker for a ceasefire. It is a diplomatic tightrope that is fraying under the weight of the conflict.
Which brings us to the grand, interconnected web of the broader Middle East. If we step back and look at this as a complete picture, the links between Iran, Lebanon, Gaza, and US policy are impossible to ignore. It is not three separate conflicts. It is one massive, multi-front geopolitical earthquake. How should we understand this interconnectedness?
Mm. Think of it as a sprawling underground root system. You see a fire breaking out in the forests of Lebanon, another in the urban centres of Gaza, and sparks flying in the Persian Gulf. But beneath the surface, they share the exact same root structure. Iran's strategy intentionally links these arenas. Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, the various militia groups across the region, they are all levers that Tehran can pull to distribute pressure and deter direct attacks on Iranian soil. US policy for decades has tried to compartmentalize these issues, deal with the nuclear threat here, deal with the Palestinian issue there, but that compartmentalization is no longer possible. The architecture of the region has fundamentally changed.
That raises a deeply philosophical question about the nature of modern conflict and deterrence. Are we witnessing the absolute limits of military power? We have the most advanced militaries in the world deploying state-of-the-art technology, from precision strikes on radar facilities to complex missile defense systems. Yet, security seems more elusive than ever. Does the constant application of force eventually just create a self-sustaining cycle of violence?
That is the defining question of our era. We have mastered the science of destruction, but seem to have lost the art of resolution. Deterrence is ultimately a psychological concept. It relies on the adversary believing that the cost of action outweighs the benefit. But when you are dealing with non-state actors or nations driven by deeply entrenched ideological or existential fears, traditional deterrence completely breaks down. The profound tragedy here is the normalization of perpetual war. We are raising entire generations across the Middle East under the shadow of drones and the rubble of airstrikes. The long-term cost is not just measured in billions of dollars or destroyed infrastructure, it is measured in the hardening of human hearts and the extinguishing of hope.
It forces us to confront what the endgame actually looks like. If military supremacy cannot dictate peace, and diplomatic channels are frozen by mutual distrust, what breaks the cycle? We are looking at a landscape where frozen assets remain locked, oil routes remain under constant threat, and the skies over Lebanon and Israel remain filled with fire. It feels as though the entire region is holding its breath, waiting for a spark that could ignite the whole board, or a miracle that could cool it down.
And miracles are notoriously unreliable in geopolitics. The reality is that the coming months will require a caliber of statesmanship that we have not seen in a very long time. It will require leaders willing to take immense domestic political risks to forge incredibly uncomfortable compromises. Until then, we are merely managing the chaos, not solving it. The gears of the clock keep turning, the pressure keeps building, and the rest of the world can only watch, hoping the mechanism does not shatter completely.
A sobering reality to leave our listeners with today. The intricate machinery of the Middle East continues to grind, and the consequences of a single misstep will echo far beyond the region's borders. We will continue to track these shifting sands, the diplomatic stalemates, and the profound human stories caught in the crossfire. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the narratives, keep looking beneath the surface, and we will be back next time to help you make sense of it all.